Mega Evolution is the most iconic Pokemon mechanic of all time. It had such a massive impact on the community that fans 12 years later are still begging for its return. But what if I told you that it did more harm than good, introducing a problem that to this day Game Freak still haven't found a solution to? Let me ask you something. Could you name me one recent mechanic that's reached the same level of hype as Megas? Z-moves? Dynamax? Terrestrialization maybe? Yeah, I didn't think so. Most of you probably get the point I'm trying to make. Mega Evolution set the bar so incredibly high that all of Game Freak's attempts to reach it have been mediocre at best. Today, we're gonna break down what went wrong with every mechanic introduced after Mega Evolution and how they could fix it in future games. Starting with Z-moves, it easily had the toughest task, being released right after Mega Evolution, and it's safe to say they did a horrible job. I think anyone that played Sun and Moon would agree, Z-moves felt a little gimmicky. Z-moves could only be used once a battle, meaning it barely had any impact on the fight, which was made worse by the fact that you had to watch the unskippable animation every time you used it. It got really repetitive and annoying after the first use, and some animations could even go for as long as a minute. My second issue with the mechanics is the animations itself. There's no way they actually approved some of these Z-moves. Just look at the fairy type Z-move, Twinkle Tackle. No special animations, no Pokemon movement whatsoever, just the original sprite awkwardly flying through the air. Any fan over the age of 6 would be irritated after watching this more than once. My final issue was how much they shoved this crappy mechanic down our throats. In Ultra Sun and Moon, they also added Mega Evolution, making everybody happy, right? Well, not exactly. You could only get access to the superior mechanic after completing the entire game. They went through all the effort of including it, just to lock it behind post-game. It feels like such a stupid move that made fans hate Z-moves even more. Our next mechanic just proves that Game Freak never learns. Dynamax was hyped up to be the true successor to Mega Evolution, and in some ways, it was. It even had a special variation called Gigantamax, which gave certain Pokemon unique designs alongside their size boost. But that's about where the praise ends. Dynamax as a mechanic was completely overpowered. Not only did it double your Pokemon's health, but it also made them immune to several status moves, effectively turning them into untouchable tanks. And if that wasn't bad enough, it boosted the effects of all your moves to a ridiculous level. It felt like getting hit with Z-moves for 3 turns straight. The competitive scene was a mess. Battles became less about strategy and more about who could Dynamax at the right time to sweep the opponent's team. It got so bad that Smogon, the go-to community for competitive Pokemon, banned Dynamax in double battles. That alone should tell you how unbalanced and frustrating it was for players. Our next mechanic is the worst defender of them all. There's no universe where Nintendo thought terrestrialization was a good idea. I mean, come on, the designs are even lazier than Z-moves. It somehow manages to make some of the coolest looking Pokemon seem goofy. At least the other mechanics tried to incorporate some degree of creativity. The most creative thing about terrestrialization is the hats, which don't ever change. There's no uniqueness to them at all. It's just so irritating to see a billion-dollar company be so incompetent. The actual battle mechanics of the feature aren't perfect either. Since terrestrialization gives priority to the user every time, it can get out of hand really quickly. Not knowing what type your opponent will transform into is a factor of unpredictability that a lot of fans enjoy. Personally, I feel it's a lot harder to plan out a strategy when you have no clue what type your opponent's Pokemon will be. Overall, terrestrialization had fans split between whether they enjoyed unpredictable battles or hated the randomness of the mechanic. For me, I hated it. Now that we've covered every mechanic, let's get into how I'd fix them. Z-moves probably has the easiest fix. If it were to ever make an appearance again, I'd want them to have a stronger emotional impact and have a bigger impact on battles. To do that, I'd make these changes. The attack could have different levels of power based on how high your friendship with said Pokemon is, and the attack animation could vary slightly to signify the difference. My second change would be allowing Z-moves to be used multiple times in a battle. Of course they'd have to weaken the power of the move a little, and there'd still be limitations, so they wouldn't become overpowered, but it would at least help to increase the presence the mechanic has in battle. The next mechanic, Dynamax, already has a solid foundation, so simply reducing the multipliers would make them a lot more enjoyable. I'd start by reducing the 2 times health multiplier to a more reasonable amount, like 1.5 times. It also doesn't need to last for 3 turns. It'd still be powerful if they reduced it to 2. Our final mechanic, terrestrialization, just seems like a lost cause, but I'll try my best to fix it anyways. Firstly, I don't feel it's fair for a terrestrialized Pokemon to guaranteed always go first. If it were a 1 in 2 chance, I think that would help to balance the ability out a bit more. And if they really wanted to stick with the hat design, they could at least make unique designs like Gigantamax and Mega Evolution for certain Pokemon. That's all for now. Don't forget to leave your opinions below. I respond to every comment, so don't be shy. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and sub. See you in the next one.